Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Joining me today is Annie Dormuth, who is Alberta Director for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Thanks for joining us today, Annie.
Thanks for having CFIB on the show.
All right, so the Alberta government announced yesterday that it was not proceeding to step 3 of its kind of recovery plan in terms of easing health restrictions due to COVID. You know, that plan would have included things like casinos, bingo halls, seated events like theaters and movies, museums, art galleries, places of worships, etc. First of all, your thoughts on the impact that it has on small business, that we're still stuck on that step 2.
Well, definitely a lot of businesses in a variety of sectors were disappointed or are disappointed in the news yesterday from the Alberta government that we are going to be remaining in phase 2 or step 2 of the province's reopening plan, with really no clear timeline or confirmed date of when the province might move into that phase 3. So, for example, a business such as a spin studio is still permanently or completely closed, as well as many businesses in kind of the entertainment and arts and recreation industries, thinking specifically about a pool hall type of business or even a bowling alley. Unfortunately, all those businesses are still severely impacted or in some cases completely closed right now. And that is why it's imperative that the Alberta government kind of really steps up here. As long as these restrictions are in place and they are keeping businesses closed, they really have to step up here and provide additional supports to small businesses, which unfortunately we aren't going to be seeing come the end of the month here when the current SME relaunch grant closes and the government opens up a much more limited new program to support small businesses called the Enhanced COVID-19 Business Benefit.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. I think I saw on the government website a few minutes ago that this is supposed to be launched in mid-April. The Enhanced COVID-19 Business Benefit, payments up to $10,000 for the quote-unquote most affected small businesses. Maybe give me your thoughts on what issues that CFIB has specifically about this new program.
Well, at the onset of this government announcement, CFIB raised the alarm and our concerns about furthermore, for one thing, it really didn't make much sense that the government was going to close a working program and then wait, at the time of the announcement, a couple months for businesses to apply for additional funding under an entirely new, different program. So that was our number one concern. So again, if you are a business owner who needs additional funding, you're gonna have to wait until mid-April to at least apply. It could, be beginning of May or late April to when you might even see that much needed additional funding. Furthermore, the government has much narrowed the eligibility requirements under this new program. They have increased the revenue loss threshold from 30% to 60% and also added some kind of nonsensical red tape eligibility requirements, going so far to require small businesses to prove or, attest that 80% of their revenues have not been covered by federal or provincial support programs. So I really don't understand why the government is saying, if you're accessing nearly all of them, and keep in mind that could be the rent subsidy, that could be the wage subsidy, that could be CEBA, that could be the new HASCAP program, as well as the, provincial government's SME relaunch grant, making businesses calculate all that and then say to those businesses, well, because you've accessed all of these, obviously because your business is very much hurting right now, that somehow you're no longer eligible for the province's grant. So there's a lot of nuances in this new program that, quite frankly, don't make a lot of sense. And as long as these restrictions are going to be in place, I think the government really needs to go back to the eligibility requirements of the current program rather than narrowing scope. We're seeing in other provinces that they're actually going to the extent of expanding programs. And unfortunately, here in Alberta, we have the government actually narrowing and restricting funding for small businesses.
As you look maybe elsewhere in the country, Annie, and maybe some of the other provinces, Are there other things happening in other provinces beyond, this issue about the enhanced benefit? But are there other things happening out there that perhaps you'd like to see adopted in Alberta?
Well, like I said, I think BC last week actually just expanded some of its support programs directly related to the tourism industry. Again, Alberta is in a position of actually narrowing funding to small businesses under this new program, as well as I think the province of Saskatchewan has gone so far as to extend application deadlines for some of its, programs as well. Meanwhile, here in Alberta, we're actually closing a program in a week. Next week, it will be closed. And so, I don't really understand why this government is taking the position of limiting funding to small businesses while we're still very much in this pandemic and businesses are still very much in survival mode with the
Yeah.
operating restrictions that are on them.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you also about is uncertainty, right? And yesterday when the announcement was made that there was, no moving forward on step three, the media asked the questions, or when can we expect it? That type of thing. And there's no timeline involved in this. How does the uncertainty of what's going on right now impact and affect the small businesses that are particularly affected by this?
Well, and that's the case. At the beginning of the year, we very much said that, 2021 will be a continuation of 2020, where uncertainty is still remaining quite high for a lot of small businesses. We're still very much, I know the Alberta government likes to throw, the stats saying that 90% of businesses are operating. That doesn't really reflect the realities of small businesses. Our own data shows that nearly 30% of small businesses are still not yet fully open. So although it's nice to say that businesses are operating, it doesn't meet the realities of that business owner operating under these very, very strict restrictions and operating capacity restrictions that is affecting their revenue. A lot of them are still hanging on by a very small thread, and quite frankly, for a lot of them, there seems to be no kind of end in sight for when they might open. And it does, unfortunately, like the rest of us, it relies on, other factors that are completely out of their control.
Yeah. One last thing for you, Annie. When you obviously talk to a lot of small business owners all the time. This morning, I did an interview on the mental health of Canadians and showing a continuing decline. A report by Morneau Chappelle. I'm just wondering, like, what are you sensing these days from the small business community here in Alberta, from that point of view, the mental point of view? We're 1 year into this right now. Who knows how long it's going to take? What is the mood out there?
Well, actually, I think a little over half, or around 50% of Alberta small businesses have actually, cited that they have felt the impacts or psychological issues or mental health issues because of this pandemic. And another, nearly half of them also cited, they've worked more hours throughout this entire year. So definitely this has weighed on small businesses. You have to keep in mind small businesses are in a unique position where their retirement, their livelihood, all of their investments are tied into their small businesses. And for some, even it is the sole providers of their family is all wrapped in their small business. Not only that, they have employees that also rely on them for their own livelihoods and families. So of course, this has all been very taxing for small businesses. I think that they bear the brunt of the restrictions across the entire country. They have really done their part to help with the pandemic in any way they can. They've been following restrictions. They've been following orders. And it's all been weighing on them quite heavily throughout this entire year. And now that we're basically at the 1 year mark of since when the province imposed the first COVID-19 restrictions. So yes, it's all having a very strong impact on them. And like I said, a lot of uncertainty still remains for the rest of 2021. A lot of small businesses even are going so far to say that it will take more than a year for them to see profitable levels back again for their business. Speaking strictly of the amount of debt they've even incurred during this past year. So it's definitely all accumulating right now. And all that we ask for the provincial government and governments in general, as long as these restrictions are in place until they full economy can reopen and we can get back to business operating as normal without restrictions, then we're going to have these support programs in place.
Okay, super. Thanks very much, Annie, for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Okay, super. That was Annie Dormuth, who is Alberta Director for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. This has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Thanks for joining us today.